All right, so I have this question here from Razak, and Razak is asking, is procrastination really a bad thing? While many people view procrastination as a negative trait, I'm not sure. I think it could be a sign that we are moving too fast and need to slow down and rest. Perhaps God is telling us to take a break and recharge. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, sir. Could you shed more light on the topic? Well, thank you very much, Razak. And sure, I would be glad to give my thoughts on this topic of procrastination. I think it's an interesting topic. Um, Razak is of the opinion that procrastination is not all bad. It has been given a very bad rap over time because there's this saying: procrastination is the thief of time. So procrastination has been labeled as a thief over time. And, you know, I personally believe that this is an overgeneralization of procrastination as a vice rather than a virtue. I do believe that procrastination can be useful, and I'll explain why in the course of this podcast. So I would like to tag this podcast procrastination. Is it a time thief or a timing ally? Is it something that consumes your time and destroys your time, or is it something that perfects your timing? And I think the best place to start is to really analyze why people procrastinate in the first place. And I truly believe that there are four major reasons why people might be caught in this act of procrastination. And in analyzing these four reasons, we'll kind of go through which ones are viceful and which are virtuous. So the first reason why I think people are caught in procrastination is interest. Interest. And when I talk about interest, I mean a lack of interest. People procrastinate what they don't have an interest in. People procrastinate an activity that they are not interested in. I experience this nearly every day in the house when I have asked my kids to do certain chores. They put it off and they're like, Daddy, I never knew you wanted us to do it now. I was thinking of doing it later. I'll do it after taking my bath. I'll do it after dinner. You understand? So when you tell them to clean up the living room, they are telling they put it off and they're like, oh, Dad, let's do it when we get back. You understand? Because they are not interested in that activity. Whereas when you have activities that they're absolutely interested in, and maybe you tell them to prepare for a family game session, you understand, where we want to play a game, maybe Monopoly or cards or charades or something. Before you know it, they begin to organize themselves for this time of family bonding, and they never put it off. They never say let's do it later. They want to do it now. And so I really believe that this is a vice when we allow our interest to control our actions totally. It is a vice, and it's an immature way of living. It's expected for kids to do this, so we must train them not to be this way. But some people are not trained, so they go all into adulthood, only engaging in stuff they're interested in. But one thing we must know is that life doesn't always offer us interesting things, fun things, exciting things. Some of the things we would have to do with our lives that are important will be incredibly boring. Incredibly boring. You understand? It's going to be like routine. It's going to be like watching paint dry. Not every good thing is exciting. Not every productive thing is exciting. And I think it's a sign of maturity to pick importance over interest. You understand? It's a sign of maturity to do that. Yes, it's good for us to commit to things that are interesting too. You understand? Because when you're interested in something, there's a higher chance for you to give your best to it. But then we must have that accommodation in our mind that not every day would be a fun-filled day. Not every day. You understand? Not every day will be a fun-filled day. There are going to be days that are just going to feel very drab and boring. But that is life. You understand? That's life. So if we keep on putting off activities because they are not interesting, we set ourselves up. Because the truth is that the important always has to be done. And so, like the case of my kids, when I tell them to do stuff and they put it off to a later time, what happens is now what they now have is an accumulation of activity, which now introduces stress to something that is now not interesting in the first place. You understand? So they're now overloaded with activity. And this leads us to the second reason why people might get trapped in this act of procrastination. The second reason is involvement. And when I say involvement, I mean an over involvement or an over commitment of your time. And this is where I realize that a lot of people don't know how to say no. They say yes to every request on their time. So when you are over committed, over involved, definitely some things will have to bump up other things. You understand? Or bump off other things from your schedule. So you might really want to do an activity, but you actually can't. You can't. So you bump it off. Oh, I'll go tomorrow. You understand? So there's an over involvement, over commitment. So you keep putting it off. You keep putting it off. A lot of us do this in business. You understand? We do it in business a lot, where we take jobs from every client that comes, not knowing how many clients we can handle per time, and just looking at how much we are going to be paid. And so you overcommit. And then you realize that you don't have enough time to do all the projects and deliver as at when due. So for some projects, you just have to procrastinate. So we give time to the client that puts the most pressure on us. You understand? So an over involvement, over commitment. I see people do this also in the Nigerian schooling environment. We have a lot of people in school that are not doing well. They're not doing well not by virtue of the fact that school is too hard, but by virtue of the fact that a lot of them are overcommitted. I went to school with a lot of people like this. They were overcommitted to fellowship activities, sporting activities. You understand? And then they see themselves not able to commit to the course of study. You understand? Because now what they do is that they bump off classes. They procrastinate on assignments and projects because they're overcommitted. You understand? So involvement is one of the reasons why people procrastinate, because the time can only take so much, but people have crammed up their time with so much activity that they're not able to commit or to produce results on all their commitment. So involvement is the fourth reason, and I feel this is a vice. It comes from a place of lack of confidence. It takes a confident person to say no, and I say no is a very liberating word. No liberates us. Yes commits us. You understand? There's a time to say yes, and there's a time to say no. But no frees up your schedule. Yes commits you to an activity and to involve yourself. So you realize that people that are yes men have a problem with procrastination. This is a vice. You understand? You are destroying your own time. This is when procrastination becomes a thief of time. Now, the third reason why people procrastinate is intimidation. Intimidation. And what I mean is when you find an activity that seems intimidating, it seems daunting, it feels challenging, people get scared. People get scared of what they're about to go into. They are unsure of the result. They're unsure of the process. They're intimidated. It's very likely that they will put it off. So this is what they call putting off the evil day. You understand? So they imagine in their mind that things will be bad, challenging, tough. So it's not really about interest. They might even be interested in it, but then they are scared. They're interested in the final product, but then they are scared of what it takes to get there. You understand? So it might be an exam. Of course, everybody's interested in a promotion, but then the exam, you are thinking, would I do well? Or it's going to be a difficult exam, or it's going to be challenging. But you want to be promoted and you have to do the exam. So when they tell you the exam has been shifted by a week, you are happy. You understand? You are happy. You understand? We are happy at that delay of putting off something that might actually be something that will bring progress. So you want the result, but the process seems intimidating. There seems to be a mountain between you and that expected end that you have. And then you don't mind putting off the challenge of climbing the mountain every single day. Intimidation, fear. I remember a particular time in my life, a situation. I remember when myself and my wife were expecting our first child. And it was a very exciting period for us, our first child. So we're excited. But then I realized that as the EDD, the day of delivery, was coming closer, I started to get scared because I could see the discomfort in my wife. She felt very uncomfortable. Her sleeping was highly disturbed, and on the day of delivery, as I could already see that her contractions were already very closely timed, and she was in so much distress. You understand? And now that I've seen it, it's not like it was so much distress, but it was the distress of pregnancy. So I was scared. I've never seen anything like that before. And so I remember saying in my mind, God, please let this baby come another day. You understand? Give us one more week because I'm not emotionally ready for this process. I'm not emotionally ready. So I prayed for God to delay the date. Even though I was excited about having a baby, that process I wasn't sure. You understand? I wasn't sure. I'd never ever seen a woman in labor. You understand? And I was about to go through this process with my wife, at least be with her there. And I was like, God, okay, just give us one more week, so I can get myself psychologically ready for this and stuff. But that day was the day. And I remember after she delivered, and I saw my daughter, it was like one of the most amazing moments of my life. You understand? It's right up there. My first daughter, holding my child in my hands and looking into her eyes. Her eyes were wide open. Gone are the days when kids are born with their eyes closed. Um, her eyes were wide open, and I looked into her eyes and I was like, this is my child. And I was so glad that it happened that day. So happy. It's one of the happiest days of my life. You understand? I was so happy. And I was so glad that it happened at that time, that day, and there was no delay. You see, a lot of the things that seem to be intimidating and we put off because of a fear, we would realize that they are not as terrible as they seem in our mind. And secondly, we'll realize that the joy of the result far outweighs the fear of the process. The joy of the result would far outweigh the fear we have for the process. You understand? So, a lot of times, with this type of procrastination, what it does is that it denies us of our victory when it should come. So when you're putting off something you should do because you are intimidated, you are denying yourself of a victory you should be enjoying in the present, and you keep putting your victory in the future. I would have you know that some of the best things that you will do with your life will start out seeming very intimidating in your mind, and they might actually be intimidating in reality. But then when I look back at my life, some of the best things that I've done started out with me getting there and wishing it wasn't something I had to do that day. But at the end of the day, I thank God that I didn't put it off. And I'm sure that's the same with a lot of us. So intimidation can be a reason why people procrastinate. But then you're allowing procrastinations rob you of a joy that you could be enjoying in the present. Um, The fourth thing why people procrastinate. Now, this is where I need people to pay attention. And when I say procrastination is not all bad, is people procrastinate out of a sense of instinct or intuition. Instinct or intuition. And on the podcast, I've talked about instinct or intuition being a soul function, and I think it's a function that humans have educated themselves out of, and it's highly unfortunate because it's a superpower we have as humans, to have that compass that tells us where we should be at any particular time. Sometimes we procrastinate out of a sense of instinct or an intuition. You're like, oh, I just feel I shouldn't do this today. I feel I shouldn't do this today. For the smallest of things, you have clothes to wash and you're like, I'll wash it tomorrow. Not because you don't like washing. No, it's not disinterest. You understand? It's not a time. It's not laziness. It's not a fear. You understand? It's not an overcommitment. Not like if you have something more important to do at that time, but something just tells you, don't do that activity now. Do it tomorrow. Don't go and visit that friend now. Visit them tomorrow. Put it off. You understand? Put it off. Put off that. It's not like you have a commitment. I will say that again. It's not like you have a commitment or a very logical reason for not doing it. Or it's not like you don't want to do it. But just deep inside, just feel, tomorrow. You understand? That happens. And a lot of times, our instincts are a compass. They are there to guide, to guard, to direct, to protect us. They're right there. But the human being has lost their basic instincts. So everything we do is highly controlled by rationality. You understand? We rationalize everything. And there is an interesting story in the Bible, in John 11, and it's the story of Jesus and Lazarus. And it starts out with Jesus getting a message from Lazarus' sister that Lazarus, Jesus' very good friend, obviously they were very good friends because the sister said, the man that you love, you understand? So there was a very tight, loving relationship between Jesus and Lazarus, is sick. And they expected him, they sent this message because they expected him to come and save his friend. They're like, this man is saving other people, you understand? He would definitely come when he hears that Lazarus is sick. But something interesting happened. Jesus heard this and he told the people that Lazarus will be fine. He said Lazarus will be fine. He said it won't end in death. He will be fine. And to make matters worse, in quote, Jesus extended his stay by 2 more days. 2 more days where he was staying. And the distance between where Jesus was and where Lazarus was a 2-day journey. You understand? So it was it was a huge delay. It wasn't like immediately he got up after that 2 days, he would get there that very day that he left. No, it would take him some more days to get to where Lazarus was. But Jesus delayed by 2 days. He said, let's stay here 2 more days. No rush. And he said that by the time he left, Lazarus had died. So Jesus got to Lazarus after he had been dead for 4 days. So he got there pretty late. You understand? He got there late. And when he got there, he saw that there was there was a lot of grief in the air, and there was a lot of blame. You understand? There was a lot of animosity towards him. Like, why didn't you come? If you had come on time, he wouldn't have died. Why did you take your time? Why did you delay? You understand? Why didn't you prioritize him? And at that time, Jesus knew the reason for his delay. He might have known way before that, but at that time, he voiced the reason for his delay. He said that he now knows that he delayed because there were so many people around, and because after Lazarus had died, a lot of people came to gather, and we were all wailing and mourning and stuff like that. And Jesus came and met so many people that were already in doubt that God could do anything about Lazarus' situation. If he had come earlier, most probably the only people who would have met was like Lazarus and his sister and maybe just a few close relatives. Because a lot of people will gather more at the time of death than at the time of sickness. So people gather at the time of death, mourners, and they were like, nothing can happen, it's gone. And he said he came this late so that God can prove his power in front of many people rather than in front of few. So you can see here that in this situation, Jesus's procrastination and delay in going to see Lazarus was for good reason. It made the timing perfect. And when he raised Lazarus from the dead, it was one of the most amazing miracles that people had seen in that time. You understand? It was like the final blow for the Pharisees. You understand? They were like, whoa, because he did this in front of so many people. A lot of the other things he had done, a lot of them were private, but this one, a lot of people saw it, and it was like, because God wanted the timing to be right, it had to be delayed. Sometimes your instincts will tell you to delay stuff so that your timing can be perfect. Sometimes you would have to procrastinate on some things so that your life can be spared. That feeling of, I'm not going today, Jerry, I'll go tomorrow, can be the difference between life and death. Because you were meant to get on that bus. You didn't get on that bus that had an accident. And like, why didn't you go? I said, I just changed my mind. I didn't feel like going anymore. You understand? I said, I put it off till next week. You understand? That made all the difference. All the difference. Procrastination. Telling your children, oh, you can't go today again, Jerry, let's go tomorrow, can be the difference between saving their life and losing them. There are many times when I've wanted to record a podcast, just put out a podcast out there, and I have the subject matter in my hands. I'm ready. You understand? I'm excited, but for some reason I just put it off. I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. And I put it off. I can't explain. But then my mind will begin to guilt trip me. Oh, you're being lazy. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you see, but the beauty, especially about being a spiritual person, because someone that listens to their intuition is highly spiritual. You understand? Someone that doesn't live in their logic. Take someone that doesn't live in their logic to be spiritual. When you listen to your spirit, especially in times when I just feel I put up this podcast, I put it off to a later day, I realize that sometimes when I now record it and I put it out, I get a message from someone saying, thank you for putting this out today. I was meant to make a decision today, just right now. And I listened to this and it has helped me. I needed this right now. And so it always baffles me how what seems like a vice, my mind was telling me I was so irresponsible. This is a vice. But my spirit was telling me, no, don't do it. My soul was telling me that. You understand? Don't do this. Don't. You understand? I decided to go with my intuition, and it just allowed for this beautiful serendipity to happen. You understand? Where somebody needed it and it happened at the very time when the person needed it. And this came out of it like procrastination. But it was instinct-based procrastination. Instinctive. It was my instinct. So those are the reasons why people procrastinate. It's not all bad. It's not all negative. Procrastination is not always a thief. Sometimes it's an ally of timing. Sometimes it is. So when next you feel you're putting something off, think about what your reasons are. The reasons are more important than the act. You understand? A lot of times we get so involved in guilt tripping ourselves on the act of procrastination. But a lot of times the reasons are more important than the act. And once we're able to find the reasons, we know what to do, whether to sit back or to pull ourselves up. But I hope someone finds this podcast helpful. And thank you very much, Razak, for that beautiful question.